Afternoon. How's this one? Aloha. Aloha. You guys are horrible at that. Let's try it again. Aloha. Awesome. Okay, today it's the 10th of July 2018, 3 o'clock. This is a special commission meeting here in the commission chambers. It's to discuss the approval of the Weber County Board of Canvass for the 2018 primary election. Our presenter, before we get to that line item, seated to my right is the most handsome assessor in the state of Utah, Mr. John Ulibarri, and to my left, according to state statute, the number one appointee. According to the stature, our treasurer, John Bond. And so we welcome both of you here today. Mr. Cowley, it's your floor. If you'd come and make that presentation of the canvas, you've got a blank canvas. Go ahead and fill it up.
All right, but that canvas is spelled with one S. This one's with two. So
know
it's
what?
A little different canvas that we have. So
Yes.
it's good to be here this afternoon. We're here to present the official results for the primary election that was held on June 26th. And in your packet, there's a few statistical items that I wanted to go through real quickly. First of all, we had a 54.4% turnout, which is a pretty incredible number for a primary election. And I think a lot of that's attributed to vote by mail and putting that ballot in front of voters. It was 44.7 countywide. As far as Republican turnout, it was the 54.4. On the Democratic side, it was 33.8. And then among the nonpartisan voters, which is all the other voters in just the school board areas, it was 14.4%. Overall, about almost 95% of the ballots that were cast by mail or through a drop box. The drop boxes are very, very popular. And in fact, 48% of all of the by mail ballots were dropped in a drop box rather than placed through the postal system. And with the drop boxes this year, we have a drop box at every single city hall in the county that's accessible 24 hours a day, as well as a 24-hour box at all of the libraries. So that's a pretty neat thing that we have that accessibility to the ballot box, not only in front of our house, but at the city halls and the libraries. As far as turnout, how that compares to other years, next box there, we have a 44.7% turnout with 28,868 ballots cast. In 2016, which was also a gubernatorial primary, just to put that in perspective, we had 21,701 ballots cast for 38.9%. So you can see quite a jump from 2016 to this year. Overall, we mailed 64,536 ballots out, and of those, only 3% were returned undeliverable. So statistically, that's a pretty incredible number. Any mailing that you do, they tell you to factor in about a 10% undeliverable rate. And that number is attributed to the hard work that our staff puts into processing the voter registrations correctly and accurately, as well as doing updates to that through the NCOA list, as well as the new laws that took effect that allow us to update registrations through motor vehicle much more accurately, much more quickly, as well as giving voters that choice and making it a choice to where they have to answer that question as to whether they want to register to vote when they get their driver's license. So the sad part of the election is always the ballots that we're not able to count. That's the part that I always hate. We had 218 ballots that we had to reject. 103 of those were because they were returned past the deadline, and state law doesn't allow us to count it if it's not postmarked prior to election day. And then the rest of it's for various reasons, such as the ballot wasn't signed at all, or the signature didn't match the signature that we have on file. And in those cases, we mail the voter a letter that explains to them why we're rejecting their ballot and gives them an opportunity to correct that. So even though we reject those ballots, we have given that voter the opportunity to correct that, fix that, and have their ballot counted. And in fact, we had 201 ballots that we rejected, and we had over 90 that were the letters were returned back to us. On the provisional ballot front, we had 248 provisionals cast, and 238 of those qualified and were counted, with only 10 of those being rejected. So that's kind of our overall statistical report. The reason that you're all here is to look at the actual results. Those are in the pages that are joined to that. Nothing changed from election night. We were able to count 88% of the ballots on election night and release those results. The additional 12% were released the Thursday after the election. And then pretty much just the provisional ballots and the handful are new to this total that have not been released prior to today. So basically everything held true from election night until now. So a couple of things that were unique to this election. First of all, we got to use our new voting equipment, which was very, very exciting for us. That's something that's been a long time coming, and a lot of hard work and effort went into that. I want to thank the commission specifically for helping to fund that, and then also through the legislature, and we actually even got federal money this time as well, which is something we weren't anticipating. But we're in a really good spot equipment-wise in the state of Utah, and the equipment operated and functioned beautifully, created a lot of efficiencies on our end, and voters really, really appreciated the technology and the ease of use that they had in the polling place. With that technology, probably the coolest part of the election for me came in the audit that we conduct. So after the election's over, we randomly give a list of all the ballots that we counted to the Lieutenant Governor's office, and they give us back a certain number and tell us which batches we need to go back and audit. And as we did that, what our new system allows us to do is, in the past, we would go through and we would hand count all of the ballots and then compare that with what the machines tabulated. And that was a pretty good audit. But what we're able to do now is not only hand count the ballots, but we're actually able to bring up a digital image of that ballot. And then we have what's called a cast vote record, to where while we were looking at that image on our computer screen, we could also look up and see how each race was tabulated by the machine. So we can look at that in kind of a one-to-one type scenario. And it's amazing the detail that you're able to see, and it gives us such clarity and transparency into what these machines are doing while we're scanning those ballots. So it was really, really kind of a cool thing to have that technology and that ability. And we're one of the few states, if not the only state, that allows that digital image to be used in an audit. But the benefits, I think, are incredible on that. So with that, the last thing, and probably the most important thing that I can say, is thank you to the staff that we have and to the poll workers. This election was really kind of a tough election in a lot of fronts because we did use all new equipment. Every single piece, every single process that we had some new technology or new mechanics to it. And that's kind of a scary deal. When you're trusted with being the gatekeeper of democracy, it's got to function, and it's got to function right. And our staff did an amazing job of getting all of that into place with the proper procedures. The poll workers executed that basically to perfection. Nothing's ever flawless, but the little hiccups and things that we encountered, they handled beautifully, and in the end we're able to do a tremendous job. But one of the things most of all that I would like to do is just thank the staff that we have. Most of you are probably aware we lost one of our key employees just a few weeks before the election, and that put a tremendous burden on our staff. Whenever you lose somebody in your small office anyway, that's a difficult thing to overcome. And there were several mornings where I would come in, at 5 o'clock or whatever to get things ready, and by 6 o'clock in walks Daniel to do voter registrations. And the dedication that he showed is second to none in the state. Candace did a tremendous job stepping in. We have her part-time between accounts payable and our office, but she stepped up in a big way with our polling places and our poll workers. And then our new hire, Jessica, did a great job. She came in one day.
Is she an intern or a new hire?
She's a new hire. Okay. She was an intern, But she is our new hire, and she played an integral role. She was able to come in the Monday before the election and start that Monday and help us on election day and afterward, and that was a tremendous help to do that. But, you know, to lose a key employee and still continue on the way that we were able to me was an amazing effort by the people in our office. So with that, I turn it over to any questions and ask you to approve this election, and that's all I have to say.
Mr. Bond, Mr. Ulibarri, questions? Statement, yes, sir.
Excellent. Thank you, Commissioner. I just want to thank everybody in the elections office. We have no idea really how hard you guys work every year on this. And the nice thing is we never have to read about you in the newspaper because that's when you know something's really gone sideways. I also appreciate the willingness of the election staff to embrace new technology. Ryan and I were talking about it this morning, and he just gets really geeked out, for lack of a better term, about the new stuff that they get, and it's just simply amazing the things that they can do with it. And Weber County embraces it instead of saying, well, that's not the way we've done it, and we've always done it this way, so we're going to continue to always do it this way. Weber County says, no, we found a better way to do it. Let's do that. And last but certainly not least is Mr. Ricky Hatch. I don't think people realize what a big deal Ricky is. Ricky is a lot of the reason that we secured, when I say we, I mean Ricky secured the funding for the new elections equipment. He works very, very hard up on the Hill. He's built some really good relationships with legislators, and he personally gets called out in meetings by our UAC lobbyists as to how great he is. So thank you, Ricky, for everything that you do.
Yes. Mr. Bond?
I echo the same congratulations on that to you and to your staff and to Ricky. Great job. Just one question, maybe a forecast. In June of 2013, when the library bond was out there and vote by mail started, you've now got 4 years behind you. What's the future? Is it vote by mail?
It is for the foreseeable future. There's several technologies that are being worked on to try to enable internet voting. Personally, I still think that's a ways out. There's been a few breakthroughs with blockchain technology, trying to use that to make it so it's an auditable function to be able to vote electronically. But in my opinion, the country is moving towards paper ballots, just like we have, so that there is a paper trail that is fully auditable. But who knows, 15, 20 years in the future, we probably...
Just the next 5 years, you think?
Next 5 years, we'll be
vote by mail is here, and it's here to stay.
Yep, and statewide, it was all but 2 counties, is that correct, Ricky, that did vote by mail this year in Utah. And even back east, Ricky's been very involved in several organizations, but we've fielded calls from Maryland, Virginia, places where vote by mail is not accepted readily, but they're asking questions and interested in vote by mail. So not only in Utah, but I think nationally there's a huge move towards vote by mail, and I think you'll see that take over the country in most places.
Thank you. Before I entertain a motion, Mr. Hatch, you had a little something to say earlier this morning in our expanded department head meeting about Mr. Calley. Would you mind sharing that here publicly?
You bet, and he'll get mad at me later for saying it, but that's
well,
okay.
I asked, so it's okay.
So as far as our vendor, they had several people. I think we probably had 6 visitors from our vendor's national office to come and help ensure that everything was going properly. These are people that travel virtually nonstop to various counties throughout the country and election jurisdictions to try and help them implement best practices as well as their technology. And a couple of things that they said, one of them said specifically that the state of Utah, with the current setup that we have, really is the most sophisticated election jurisdiction right now as far as elections technology. And that Ryan talked a little bit about the adjudication. The individual who drove the creation of the processes for the adjudication and being able to get to a fully electronic auditing type process is Mr. Cowley. He worked with the state, consulted with them, and recommended this, and in fact helped convince them to move towards that. The second thing that another individual from the vendor said said, and this is a gentleman, let's see, it was June at the time. He said, I have spent 2 weekends at home so far this year. Otherwise, he's been on the road the entire time, so he gets around. And he said, I've been to a lot of shops around the country, a lot of election shops, and Weber County is on the ball. You guys, this is among the best I've seen, regardless of size. And he says, your elections director gets it. He knows what's going on, and he's on top of it. And I'm sure that he would say the same thing for the staff if he had more chance to interact. We really do have a phenomenal election staff and team overall. So they've been very nationally. They're very impressed. Ryan is going to be speaking next week in Reno, presenting to probably about 120 election officials throughout the country, as well as overseas, talking about the voter registration process and some best practices that we have implemented here in Utah. Wait, it's not voter registration, it's by mail.
Vote by mail.
He was just like, oh no, I prepared the wrong presentation. No, it's vote by mail. And to have 96% of all of our ballots be cast by mail or in drop boxes, that's a evidence that the citizens of the county trust the process. And anyone who comes in and observes the process leaves very confident that when a ballot hits our office, it will be counted properly and not lost, and no introduced new ballots that shouldn't be in there. We really do a fantastic job.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Hatch. Thank you, Mr. Calley, for an absolutely exemplary job. Appreciate that.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks to your staff. Great. I'll, to the two of you, my two Johns today, if one of you would like to make a motion to accept the report, the summary results report for the 2018 primary election.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. I will go ahead and make a motion to approve the Weber County Board of Canvass for the 2018 primary election.
Have a motion?
Second.
And a second? Is there any more discussion? Call for the vote. All in favor? Aye. It's unanimous. Thank you. We're accepted. Thank you very much again, Mr. Calley. Is there a motion now there for item number C? It's moved. We're adjourned. Thank you.